Hello. Today is Monday, August 18th. Thank you for checking out another episode of the Mituye News. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check the Substack link, subscribe to that newsletter. That's really the heart of this endeavor. We'll get right to it as usual, starting with some global politics. We got some stuff going on in Bolivia. As we can see from our headline here, Bolivia heads to runoff after right turn in presidential vote. Let's take a look at what we got going on here. Bolivians decisively repudiated the leftist party, which has ruled the country for most of the past 2 decades, in a first round presidential election vote, likely paving the way for more market friendly policies for its crisis racked economy. Centrist, sorry, my dog decided to bring his outside toy in here. Centrist Senator Rodrigo Paz secured 32% of the vote, while Eduardo del Castillo of the Movement for Socialism, MAS, had just 3.16, according to initial results released by the Electoral Tribunal on Sunday night. So we got a real shift here in Bolivia. I think that seems to be the major implication of this story here, is that after several decades of staunchly leftist government, the Bolivians, and they participate in this election. I think it's some clip of like 80%. There was international watchers to ensure there weren't irregularities. So we can say that this wasn't necessarily like an orchestrated ordeal, but seems to be an organic shift in popular sentiment from the Bolivians. They went in a very different direction. There's going to be a runoff. So due to this kind of primary electoral system, no one got a majority enough to have secured the seats. However, there is a runoff coming up, but there'll be no leftist, no socialist candidate left. Right, the options will be kind of a centrist or a further right wing, as they describe it, candidate. So that in and of itself is quite significant given Bolivia's history. Bolivia is facing some real tough times. I think what they say, crisis racked economy. Inflation is near 10%. I think I saw a 40% poverty. Frustration over poverty climbing to 40%. So there's a lot of frustration, I imagine, building up with the current situation, leading to something like this, like a staunch repudiation of what I kind of associate. I associate places like Bolivia with like a socialist leftist popular sentiment like that. Like when you go and you talk to the Bolivians, what you're going to hear is like, no, we're totally, we support and we would like to advance this kind of leftist economic agenda. Perpetually. Like that was like, I kind of had it locked in my mind. And I would have thought of something else as being inorganic or kind of imposed upon Bolivians. But nonetheless, here we have it. They've made a turn. There will only be those two candidates available. So the next president will not be a leftist. What I thought was most interesting from my point of view was I personally see populism as the political strategy that is going to be most successful going forward. For politicians that do have to gain some type of popular support. So, if you're an autocrat or whatever, and it doesn't really matter what the people think, I don't think you need to be a populist. But if you're in a situation where there is kind of a democratic element to the electoral system, like people are participating, I see widespread frustration. And it seems like people are turning to populism to advance their interests and push back against particularly elites and capital. Like they're trying to say, no, there is a people, we the people, and we want control over our society, our government, our laws, our rules, our kind of, to the degree that the law is a signal for moral sentiment. We want to be in charge. We don't want to feel like we're being pushed around and dictated to. And this is a push against leftist populism, because it usually comes in those variants, right? You kind of have right populism and you have leftist populism. And here we have a real staunch repudiation of leftist populism in my analysis. But nonetheless, point is, Bolivia will not have a leftist candidate available. So Bolivia is shifting. We'll see what the implications are. I mean, I guess rather the consequences, because it's happened. But worth noting, and we will move on to our next story here. which is that there's some people trying to like increase the number of HBCU locations. As we can see, HBCUs are expanding beyond the South. Here's why. Let's see what we have here. A bold word. A revolutionary movement is transforming higher education as HBCU satellite campuses expand nationwide, bringing the celebrated culture and excellence of historically Black colleges to cities far beyond their traditional Southern strongholds. From Boston to San Francisco to San Diego, major metropolitan areas are actively competing to establish partnerships with HBCUs that would reshape Black educational spaces across America. Okay, so expand the HBCUs. Okay, it's unlikely that we'll be able to bring new HBCUs into existence, given they were allowed for under certain circumstances. Now we have, I think, legal precedents that would make it very difficult to, to justify establishing a new college on those grounds. However, so we have these historically Black colleges and universities, and we have many of them. How about we turn them into hubs and have satellites of them if we want more HBCUs? And this seems smart to me, especially given the Great Migration. Black people really did spread across this country rapidly over the course of 50, 60 years. Where are they going to go to college? They can go to the larger, usually predominantly not Black institutions. However, I, for my money, say HBCUs are the most important institution in Black America, and maybe the last legacy institution that can be revamped without radical overhaul. So if you listen to me on this show, or if you read the newsletter regularly, you'll hear me railing. The NAACP is trash now. The Urban League has lost its way. The Black Congressional Caucus is useless. I go on and on and on about all of these institutions and why I think they've become archaic, outdated, ineffective, and so on. I think the HBCUs can be cleaned up really quickly, and I think they can be really I think they are still very, very effective. And I'm skewed, I'm as an academic myself, but I do think universities are uniquely capable of helping structure society, helping us advance around some shared commitment to knowledge and development and ambition, kind of in earnest. I don't think universities are the only place that can happen. Let me be clear, but I think they're integral. I think they're an important component, and it's essential to that pursuit, and particularly I think that pursuit in Black America. But yeah, there's money. The people are trying to find the funding for it. Places like San Francisco, San Diego, Boston seem to be very interested. So yeah, we'll see where this goes. I think they said HBCU applications were up 20% last year. So more and more people are locked in, trying to get into these university systems. Hopefully the athletics push sustains. We've seen plenty of NFL players, very, very high quality athletic personnel return to the HBCUs. And I think that's perhaps one of the most critical leverage points is giving them a kind of a revenue source. A lot of good athletes are Black. I'm gonna just say it, controversial, but there's a lot of good Black young athletes in this country. If we could funnel them to HBCUs, if we could run up the NIL at the HBCUs, that this is going to produce a tremendous amount of income for the HBCUs. It's also going to give us something. So I think partly one of my big frustrations with trends in Black America has been our loss of our things. What belongs to us? You go down to the Grambling Southern game, that's us, right? The bands, the food, the culture, the vibes, that's squarely us, right? I want to see that amplified. I want to see us double down on that. I want to see us really take hold of that. And some of these institutions are struggling dramatically, which is my only concern in relation to this story here, is that, well, I mean, if the flagship is struggling, how is the satellite going? But let me not rain on the parade. I think this is right. I think the intuition is correct that we should have them accessible elsewhere. They can't all kind of be in the South and that kind of north, mid-Atlantic area. But anyway, that's what's going on. There's groups of people. You know, they say this is a kind of coalitional effort. There's lawmakers. There's academics themselves. There's politicians. There's there's a constellation. There's a lot of people that are interested in this, and I hope we're able to see it through. I hope HBCUs thrive not only as they are constituted. You know, this is not to condemn them. I think they're important, and I think they're doing well. I hope they get even better, and I hope they become even more accessible. But anyway, that's going on with the HBCUs. We'll take a look at our next story here. What we got going on? Oh, Bridgeport, I believe, if I got it in the right order here. Let's see, did I do it today? Yeah, the Bridgeport mayor. Shout out to Bridgeport. Bridgeport is going to implement drones. These drones, oh, this is a quote. Start with a quote. Aggressive here. I like this news, right? These drones deploy immediately, are on the scene before officers even get there. They're our eyes and ears and can warn officers as to what's going on so we can aid victims quicker. Ghanem says, I believe it's the mayor's last name. This is new technology. The next step for Bridgeport in crime fighting and continuing to see Bridgeport streets get safer and safer. Okay, so, you know, this story is relatively straightforward. The mayor is he approved integrating some drones into the police work. They're going to acquire some drones. There's some support from state legislators, and so on. Connecticut, writ large, Bridgeport is in Connecticut, has been increasingly comfortable with drones for policing, for public safety purposes. They say this is where it gets tricky, at least on Allen's. They say it's going to totally respect privacy laws. That's what I'm told. And that's what I'm told about all of this shift towards advanced technology in policing. So the increased use of artificial intelligence, here in Bridgeport, this use of drones. Allen is told, it's cool, bro, relax. Like, this is not going to turn into my biggest fears, you know, kind of the CCP style, everything runs through a central hub. You're constantly being surveilled and identified. And it doesn't have to be like that. Sorry, let me just say that. That's what they're telling me. Allen, what we can do is use technology to aid the police in their work in good faith. Why not be able to see the scene from a distance so that as we send officers, we can describe to them exactly what they're walking into? Why not use it to identify fugitives, you know, to find them, you know, running from the law? You can't hide from everywhere, right? It's going to be quite difficult. Why not, Allen? Get the fugitives from justice off the streets. Okay, all right, cool. Allen fears 1984. Allen fears the CCP. Allen fears overwhelming centralized authority. These are my biggest fears. So that is why I brought this to the floor. You know, it's relatively minor of a story. You know, a smaller city implements drones in policing, but I'm trying to stack up the case that, like, there's a shift going on. Be aware, right? Facial recognition, drone technology. The policing is about to change. You feel however you want to feel. I'm not here to tell you how to feel. I'm just here to tell you how I feel. But I think it's worth noting as informed citizens, because that's my mission here, right? My purpose is to say, like, okay, you're an American citizen. What do you need to know? You know, to kind of have a cognizance, an awareness of what's happening around you. There's drones, bro, like everywhere. If Bridgeport got drones, you probably you're probably not far down the line. You know, if you I live in a really small town, for instance, we might not have drones for a minute. But if you live in anything, 150,000, 200,000 people, drones, they're coming. AI, it's coming. Facial recognition, it's coming. Get used to it. So that is why I wanted to bring this to the floor. But that's what we got going on in Bridgeport. The mayor says, go ahead with the drones and promises privacy laws will be respected. So, quote unquote, this should be cool. But I have my reservations. Obviously, I'm concerned. Allen is quite suspicious of the mayor, not him in specific, but any effort to implement this type of advanced technology in policing. All right, let's get to our final story here of the day, at least as far as this show is concerned. Philadelphia, yo, this situation, yeah, what's going on in Philly needs to get resolved ASAP. All right, let me focus. Philadelphia Region Transit System begins to enact doomsday budget cuts. What does that mean? On August 14th, the Southern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, SEPTA, began to initiate service cuts associated with its doomsday budget previously announced in late June. SEPTA had previously designated August 14th as the point of no return, after which the scheduled cuts could not be reversed. The initial cuts will take effect on August 24th, with additional phases planned thereafter. The cuts in Philadelphia are part of a nationwide attack on public services. At the federal level, Trump and the Republicans are destroying entire government agencies and have spearheaded the Big Beautiful Bill, which slashes around $1 trillion from Medicaid, food stamps, that's a typo, food stamps, and other key programs. But the Democrats' pro-austerity agenda is shown by their role in enforcing massive cuts across almost every major city in America. So this is a lot. What I want to focus on is first, this situation in Philadelphia has been a slow motion train wreck in terms of the public transportation system. So like I've been covering, I try to cover a lot with the newsletter. So I've sprinkled this in over the course of several months now. Just mentioning something going on in Philadelphia with the transit system. The state house is trying to get some emergency funding to the city so they can keep the services on. I should reveal my cards. I am maybe most staunch in public services around infrastructure and public transportation, and then maybe education. We have to give people that is a common good, clean air, clean streets, stuff that works, public transportation. So this to me speaks to the real crisis. It's like, I think, the public transportation is the sexiest of topics, but I think it's a real indication of the health of the country. So this to me is the check engine. What do you mean? We got to cut 30 some bus lines in Philadelphia and 700,000 people will be affected by these cuts. This is unacceptable. What are we paying? Where's the money going? What is happening? Right? I find myself as a non-Philadelphia resident, so not my problem, but feels like my problem. Right? It feels like my problem as a fellow American looking from another city towards Philadelphia, being like, man, I don't think y'all deserve that. I think y'all deserve public transportation. I think the public officials I need everybody to the floor over the last 30 years. What the hell is going on? Because this didn't just happen right now, right? It couldn't have. It couldn't have been in the last fiscal quarter. SEPTA ran out of money. Let me focus. That's one question to me. Why is it the case that Philadelphia can't afford to keep its public transportation system functioning properly? Big question, but a question. Secondarily, why is it so hard for us to focus on the key elements of governance in government? Shouldn't this be priority number one? The buses? The streets, the bridges, but whatever. That's what's going on. They're having some serious funding problems. Yeah, they're going to have to cut back quite a bit. Talking about 32 bus routes, 25% frequency reductions on major lines, no rail service after 9 p.m. This is not tolerable. This is oppression. Alan says maybe not oppression, but this is terrible. This is bad, and Alan is not a fan. Philly, get it together, man. I'm rooting for the people. The people of Philadelphia deserve buses. We the people of Philadelphia. I'm putting myself in y'all we just for the moment. I know I'm not from Philly. I don't say what up, all that. But just let me live for a second. We deserve buses. We deserve light rails after 9 p.m. What if you work till 10? How you supposed to get home? I love trains. I literally have a real heart for public transit. So I'm quite frustrated to see this be the case in Philadelphia. But that's what's going on out there in Philly. Mandates 45% service reductions and a 21.5% fare increase. Man, That's not good, Philly. But yeah, that's what I thought it was worth mentioning. You know, as a kind of a story of that's indicative of real turmoil, a real problem in my country. My country is struggling. My country is struggling to commit to quality governance. We're preoccupied with everything but what needs to be done. So that's it for me for today. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. As usual, be harder to conquer. Take care of your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health. Stay informed. Check out the newsletter, read the Substack, and so on. I'll see you all tomorrow. Y'all have a good rest of your day.